I dare you, man. I dare you, because this is not a threat. I'm not telling you this because I like you. I'm telling you this because it will happen. We are going to re-educate the mindset of the legislature and those people in the trial lawyer community who think doctors are easy hits. They think we're lambs ready to slaughter. I think Jodie Foster did pretty good in her movie. I wonder how my movie's going to go. This is not Silence of the Lambs.
Alpha Day Guam and Beyond. This is Dr. Luan Nguyen. So welcome to another episode of the New Gen Peak Performance Podcast. So this is where we talk about mind, body, and relationships. But we also really want to talk about improving the healthcare system. And this is where I really wanted to invite Dr. Akimoto. He certainly has a lot of opinions in politics and healthcare policy. So I thought this was the perfect person to talk about, especially in the light of some of the things that are going on recently. So, before I start, I don't think you really need an introduction. I think everyone on Guam knows who's Dr. Akimoto. Besides maybe they don't know that, you went to Michigan State University and you did a residency in family medicine at Mayo Clinic. But I kind of like to know a little more of the origin story. How did you, grow up? How did you even get into politics and being having the opinions you have and getting involved in speaking about politics?
So I think the spider bit me when I was walking through the ruins of the old Guam Memorial Hospital at Ipao Point with a psychiatrist who was dressed in white shorts and a white shirt, and he looked kind of almost like a younger Indiana Jones, if you know who Indiana Jones is. Yep. I mean, he was bespectacled. So I think at some point in the movie, Harrison Ford wears glasses, to make him look smarter. So this dude kind of looked not quite as handsome as Harrison Ford, but he's walking me through there, and I'm not even a medical student. I'm actually a third-year psychology student, honors, at the University of Hawaii, and I'm doing like my first real clinical work in a psychiatric hospital. So I was assigned as a psychiatric tech to the mental health facility, which was then housed in the ruins of the original Guam Memorial Hospital, which was on Ipao Point. Mm-hmm. And you might have been born there. I mean, a lot of people were born there prior to 1977. Now, see, I'm dating you because you probably weren't born in 1977.
Yeah. So I wasn't born in the older hospital. It was definitely the one in the current location.
So you were born on Guam?
Yeah, born on Guam.
What
79.
year?
So
shortly before the transfer of the warm bodies and some of the dead bodies from the old hospital to the new hospital, they realized that the space still had maybe some function, and so they turned the cafeteria area into the psychiatric ward because they needed a kitchen, because the people in the psychiatric ward essentially lived there. It was an institution. It was many of the patients were either there because they had pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity to murderous charges. They were criminally insane, and it was truly a scary place to work, because if you looked at the records of these people, they were very sick, and the treatment on the ward was not very sophisticated. And the one psychiatrist that I had met there, I think there might have been 2 or 3, but they were rotating, he was freaking out. I mean, he walked me up to his office, which was on the 3rd floor of this really blown out building. There was broken glass. There was scattered medical stuff. Imagine a movie set like in Batman Beyond, where it really looked like Gotham City. But we were there. I recall this meeting somewhere in a pleasant time of the day when the light was golden and everything looked, kind of heroic. And he was telling me, no one's going to come and save you. You're going to have to come back home and serve your people. And then he disappeared. So the spider bites me, and I go, crap, that means I have to go to medical school. And so I was I was on a track to do clinical psychology, because at the time I thought that's what I liked. And plus I was at the University of Hawaii, and everybody was a psychology major at the University of Hawaii. And I'll tell you about the story later. But the real thing is that I had no clue how to get into medical school. So I had to go talk to my friends who were pre-med, who I had been purposely avoiding because they always were studying, and they were cutthroat, and they were just brutal. And a lot of them crashed and burned. In fact, almost all of them crashed and burned. But I went back, met with them, and then we started studying for the MCAT. And since I was starting from like zero, I hadn't even taken organic chemistry yet. So I had to restart my program. And I joined a research program for biological sciences, biosciences at University of Hawaii, and it got me a scholarship to do research and study for the MCATs. It was a perfect deal because I could just focus on studying for the MCATs and doing paper presentations and building up my resume, and then actually doing this kind of stuff, because we did, they taught us how to talk. Yeah. They coached us up on how to do presentations, how to write papers in the proper style. It was a really great program, which I think we need to maybe build on, and hopefully the kids are already seeing that. I hope St. John's has something like this. FD doesn't. I don't know about Academy, but kids coming out of Guam and Micronesia especially, and certainly the public schools, don't often have the tools to get them to be competitive once they show up for applying to medical school. They're just not ready, right? And it's intimidating, it's frustrating, it's also demoralizing. So the spider bites me in a place where I have no resources, and the guy, who inspires me, or, whatever, he's like Raja Ghul. He just says that one time. I really only met him once. And then he poofs, he disappears. And his real thing was, no one's going to come back to a place like this and care as much as you will. And no one's going to save you, because you can see how bad things are. And things were terrible. But he saw that the people were good, they were smart enough, and that they should be the ones to do it. I mean, that's what I took from it. Of course, that's the thing. You take what you want from something, and then the rest of it is myth building. There's a psychologic construct for developing this kind of cognitive behavior.
Yeah, that's kind of funny, because my origin story is actually tied to GMH too. So we'll go into that later.
No, let's do it now. This is perfect. The people want to know.
We'll get into that in a sec, because I want to tie that to a question down the line.
Okay, you're okay.
But yeah, I don't really actually know the history of GMH, but
you were born there.
But I mean, I didn't look into it. But do you think, like, when you go into GMH now, and when I was born there in '79, are the hallways the same? Like, was there any renovations done?
They were clean when you were there. I mean, in 1979, the current GMH was maybe 7 years old, and it was mainly maintained by the nuns who lived in the building in the front, which turned into the business office. That had been the original convent, I think, for what is that? Sisters of Mercy, the really hard daycare to get into, right? Yeah. So the Sisters of Mercy are famous for just being caring, loving, and educators, and they're also very good at cleaning bathrooms. So during the time that the nuns were running the floors, and they were the ones who told people what to do, it was cool. It was very clean. And the building was actually built by the Archbishop of the Catholic Church using money that he had essentially raised or borrowed under the guidance of a guy named Jesus Leon Guerrero. Yeah. And Jesus Leon Guerrero had originally worked for the Bank of America, which was I think who built that big building that now is Bank of Hawaii downtown in Agatnia. Yeah. So the Bank of America built that, and then Bank of Hawaii bought it, and then Jesus Leon Guerrero went and built the Bank of Guam. Yeah. And then as the Bank of Guam president, he was a member of other organizations, including the GMH Board of Trustees. The Guam, it was called, I think, the Catholic Medical Center. Yeah, it was CMC, Catholic Medical Center of the Marianas, and it was built as a Catholic hospital by Archbishop Felixberto Flores, and he had intended to bring his brother home, who was studying in medical school, but his brother died about a year before the building was finished. So he finished the building. Jesus Leon Guerrero raises the money for it, borrowing it. I think they actually had to borrow it from the Bank of America, and they used the churches of the island as collateral. So they opened the hospital, and they don't have enough doctors because the doctors on Guam didn't want to work at that place for whatever reason. They didn't want to move, and so they brought in nurses and doctors from Korea. Do you know this story?
No.
So that's how Dr. Kim came. Dr. Kim was a cardiologist. Yeah, okay. And then also Dr. Gosh, I'm forgetting his name, but he was the ENT doctor, Dr. Hong. And there were originally a bunch of Korean nurses as well. They all kind of married into families, so they don't have Korean last names anymore because they're the women. But if you ever wonder why we have so many Korean families here that are kind of embedded in the community, like Dr. G, the pain management guy. Yeah. Now, I don't think his family worked for the hospital, but Dr. G and I grew up together in the streets of PD, and he speaks better Filipino than you do. His wife is Filipino. He went to school in the Philippines for many years. He's probably makes really good adobo, but he's Korean through and through. I remember going to his mom's house, or going to his house, and his grandma dug up kimchi from the ground in PD, and that's what we had for lunch. So Dr. G, and there's a bunch of other guys who are just great neighbors and friends growing up in Guam in the 70s and 80s, were, I think, part of the wave of Koreans who came with the reconstruction of Guam, and then on the invitation of the Archbishop of Guam, the Catholic Church, inviting healthcare professionals to help staff the original Guam Memorial Hospital, which was then the Catholic Medical Center. So what does that mean? That was a really clean place. It was well run. It was, at that point, state-of-the-art for the region, but the Guam doctors didn't want to work there because a lot of them were actually Filipino immigrants, and they had their own reasons for not wanting to work in the Catholic hospital. And that lack of cooperation between the existent medical community working at GMH and the private hospital is somewhat being mimicked in our struggles today. And the legacy of the bad blood and some of the, because ultimately, because the local doctors didn't support the Catholic hospital for many other reasons, I'm sure, but ultimately it failed. It went bankrupt. And it was in danger of insolvency when they were going to liquidate then the properties that were held as collateral, the Bank of America. They were very serious. And this included the Yanya Cathedral, the church down in Agate, because these were church lands in prime areas, right? So liquidating those lands and turning them into, hotels or brothels would have been, probably a way to make the money back. Yeah. But the U.S. government was petitioned to step in and try to get federal funds to save it. And the then governor of Guam, Ricky Berdalio, said, no, I don't want it. He didn't want to help. And so the archbishop almost excommunicated him. There was a big fight. This is all in the book written by Jesus Leon Guerrero. Have you read the book? Mm-hmm. It's a great book, and it's called Jesus in Little America. And Jesus Leon Guerrero happens to be Lou Leon Guerrero's dad. Yeah. And I was in the room when Jesus Leon Guerrero told his dad, don't run for governor. It's a thankless job. You're my daughter. I love you. I don't want you to get hurt. And of course, she ignored him. So she's now the governor of Guam, dealing with the situation where the hospital is failing. The doctors are, not everybody, but many of the doctors, particularly in the private sector, are against her, particularly her attempt to try to build the new Guam Memorial Hospital in Manila. And she has this grand vision, which we don't have to get into. But point is, there's conflict, right? And there's division, and there's financial chaos. And the hope is that the federal government is going to come in and save our ass. And story remains to be told. That's the ongoing saga that this podcast has the great privilege to document, because the players are accessible. They're your friends. They're people. They're your patients. They're your. You grew up with Mariana Cook. Yeah. She's the daughter of the governor of Guam, Luan Nguyen, and her career is being threatened by lawsuits because that hospital is dangerous. I mean, no one has to mince many meat. Mariana is trying to do great things, delivering babies under difficult circumstances, and her reward for that is babies die, mothers get hurt, and she gets blamed, and she gets sued, and the hospital system failed her. Yeah. My take on it, the case is working its way through court. This is not make-believe. This is soap opera stuff. This is General Hospital, All My Children. You guys are too young to remember that, but some of you guys, you sophisticated ones, will remember that it used to be hospital dramas that drove the daytime soaps. Right. And to some extent, you have the reruns of St. Elsewhere, I don't know, all these different things that Scrubs, the young kids now love these shows, right? And they're reruns.
Yeah. So that's, I guess, that's a lot more serious, issue. And mine was, I guess, my experience in terms of the OB ward was, I guess, minimal to what could have been. But sometimes I
When you were born?
No, I mean,
you had a baby here.
The joke, is that has anything changed or has anything renovated? Because when I had I just moved to Guam 10 years ago, and when I had my wife had my daughter at GMH, there was no AC. It broke down, so we had to kind of yank the fan from the nurse's station, and we had to deliver in the fan. So we were kind of complaining about that.
No kidding, because you paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, theoretically, your insurance company paid as much as you would have paid if you were in San Francisco.
Right.
That's not fair, and it's not okay. And for anybody to defend it as being, you're on Guam, I'm going to tell you, you're full of crap. You demand better for your 5G network or your beer, your crafty beer. It's ridiculous that what he just described, which is kind of white people problem. Oh, I have a fan, not an air conditioner. No, because if you look at the back of it, what the heck was going on in the OR suite if there's a C-section or down in the pharmacy in case she needs Pitocin, it is chaos. I don't know if your podcast is all touchy-feely and, we're going to sell supplements. I'm here to sell anyway. My thing is selling better government because it does matter. And it's not about politics. It's about management, and we run, me and Dr. Nguyen, and you do too, run some pretty sophisticated enterprises in a very tough economic environment. We have to make tough choices about payroll, about procurement, about just the toilet flushing. Yesterday we had an incident where the staff left a person in the room very long time, inexcusably long. So we have procedural issues. No, that's not on our rule book to offend people like that. We have furniture that needs to be renovated, otherwise it becomes deadly objects and gives people unwanted enemas. So your responsibility never ends when you're an owner of a clinic or a healthcare entity or even a food truck, right? Or whatever. So why does the government get the day off? Why does the government get to make excuses as they continue to do? Not on my watch. I mean, so some people say I'm kind of rough or harsh. I only bite the hand that offends me. I mean, not the one that feeds me, because the government don't feed me. I feed the government.
Yeah. So you kind of chomped into about some of the struggles, but are there any other, I guess, hardships or challenges running such a large clinic?
It's been incredibly easy. I don't know if this is going to offend anybody, but we seem to have no trouble recruiting really good people to come to be with us. And maybe we're not that picky. We just want people to have good hearts. And we don't seem to have trouble having people show up on time, be dedicated to their work, be honest, be caring, who sell us. And, they tell their parents to come to us. They bring their children to us. We built a company of over 100 healthcare professionals who command, pretty high salaries, and we are embarrassed that we aren't able to give them more because they're better than what we can afford right now. So our goal is to grow our enterprise to be just better, so that we can become the best place to work in the universe. And I mean, coming from the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, in the heartland of and the breadbasket of the United States, these are really hardworking rural people, farmers. They're farmers' daughters, they're farmers' sons. These people understand that there's very little between you and a harsh winter and potentially freezing to death or at least starving. And they've seen harsh conditions after tornadoes where houses are blown away. So in very few degrees of separation, they've dealt with the desperateness of feeling like you might be alone after a typhoon and everything's blown away and you come outside and it's like, Armageddon. But then your friends and neighbors come to you and help you, and it feels good, right? And people care about, how you're doing. And when you drive down the street to try to go find gas, people let you go through or they clear the way. Or, if you get a flat tire or your wife car breaks down, they help you out and they call you and say, hey, we took care of it. Here, as in all good places, you don't have to look too far to find people that you would call friend. And hopefully it's like that everywhere, but apparently it's not. Apparently we should never take for granted that there is something special in the water here where people do seem to, for the most part, respect each other, give each other space to grow. And then when things are really bad, they help each other out in ways that are very intimate. And you don't usually forget that when things are really bad and people come to help you and your family. That is priceless. So we heard the neurosurgeon, Dr.
Miami?
No, the other guy.
Garden?
No, another guy. The Dulaban say that one of the reasons he stayed here was because people were polite. They knew how to work four-way intersections and give each other way, right? Mm-hmm. You try to do that in Chicago, there'll be a riot, right? Yeah. This is not a perfect place. That we have so much room for improvement, which is great. That means we start off at a pretty high level, and if we're pushing harder, then we could be spectacular. But then when your government is lazy, selfish, stupid, when they inflict senseless violence against their own citizens, we as those citizens should beat the shit out of them. So that's what I'm about. I mean, why am I political? Because I feel like it's my duty to take care of my people by being the angel of death of bad politicians. I want to be that, like Batman, that when they've done something wrong, like Josh Tenorio and his family may have done, allegedly.
Allegedly, yep.
I want them to see me. I want them to fear that the angel of death is about to befall them and wave goodbye to them as they go to federal prison, because this is not cool, right? We trusted you. We gave you government money. You get to go on trips first class, even though you're a scum bucket. You act like you're shit, and then you do this. So fuck you. Yeah, I get really angry when I talk about politics because it's so raw, right? And when you watch Taiwanese politics, I don't know if you're familiar with Taiwanese politics, but it's full contact karate. It's like flying dragon, whatever thing. Crouching tiger. You know that, right? Yeah. They throw the furniture, but it's because they care. Yeah. That only happens when they're talking about their education system. Yeah. It's like Chinese dragon parents when you come in with the C. Yeah. You're not trying.
Yeah. So then my question to you is, if you're that passionate, right? Like, I'm sure you thought about it. Like, how come you haven't run and make some changes?
Because I make so much money doing what I do. And the people I get to work with in the private sector, they really, they make me feel guilty. Like you make me feel guilty. You and Dr. Campus, when you guys first started out, I don't know if you noticed, but it was embarrassing to me and Dr. Nguyen how little we were doing and how much you guys were doing and how good what you were doing. Your marketing approach was spectacular. And we and Dr. Nguyen were going, God, these guys are making it look like crap. Our website sucked. Our marketing materials sucked. And, even our signage sucked compared to what Nguyen came up with. And that's the great thing is that the next wave of people that come out, they're going to make you feel like crap because they're smarter. They're better. They know how to use stuff that hasn't been invented yet, like AI. How do you manage AI, right? I mean, you're obsolete, buddy. Supposedly we're obsolete, which is maybe true if we let it. I mean, again, I want AI to work for me. I don't mind if they're the ones, ordering my whatever. But to the extent that physicians, particularly, and engineers, and people that are doing things at a creative level are going to be made obsolete by AI. Yeah, I'm thinking there's other people that are going to go first. So we're still in a pretty good position. Yeah. Entrepreneurs, I think, are not going to be taken over by AI or at least replaced by AI. But, I'm hoping lawyers will be.
I don't see the big threat yet. Yeah, maybe in 10 years, but I still feel
radiologists. I wouldn't mind if AI replaced all the radiologists.
Yeah, but I think the doctors will probably be a system where the doctors are the medical directors, right? Are managing the whole system, the nurse practitioners. So, and the AI does a brunt of the work and automate things. So, but I don't feel too threatened yet, at least. But I feel more concerned about my kids. How's it going to affect them? What kind of job or what kind of majors? What do they have to do? So it's going to be the work profession is going to change rapidly in the next 15 years. So.
I'm pretty optimistic though, because I mean, one of the things that not just me and hopefully is other parents are noticing that the kids who are emerging out of the pandemic, they have heart, they have emotional intellect that is reassuring, because we're seeing them care about important things, and they don't seem to have as much of a money drive, which maybe is because we've spoiled them, but I don't think so. I mean, let's face it, the society that we're in was generous enough to give them stupid amounts of money to stay home during the pandemic. But apparently the Philippines did the same, or to some extent. I mean, again, there was complaints of corruption, but we were paying attention, and it didn't sound like too many people in the Philippines were left without food. The government there did what they were supposed to do, and it felt like around the world, governments didn't forget the poor people. In fact, they made a big effort to reach out to the poor people and make sure they were clothed, or and everybody had to go to a shelter, right? Remember, we were locked down.
Yeah.
And sorry there's so many tangents, right? But isn't this a show about functional medicine? So this is where life is functional, right? We talk about keeping people healthy, and during the pandemic, it wasn't just about getting a vaccine or getting ivermectin. There was the whole idea of you being able to mentally process this threat and then deal with it in your own abode. Mm-hmm. And think about it, forcing all these people to come together and live with their moms and dads again, or, worry about their sick auntie who's, takes care of a lot of cats.
Yeah. That
takes a lot of effort.
Yeah.
And I don't think we lost a lot of cat ladies.
Yeah.
How the hell did they feed their cats? There were no jobs. The whole economy shut down.
As the pool money, I guess.
The pool money. There was big time pool money.
Yeah.
There was big time pool money, and I'm pretty sure that's what wrecked our economy. But we're doing okay. I mean, it's 2025, and the stock market's doing okay, and we're producing more billionaires than ever. There's a wealth gap that's indefensible, but we're worrying about really kind of sophisticated, not necessarily just existential problems, but more kind of quality of life or greed. I mean, if you want to be greedy, you can be unhappy.
Yeah. But like thinking about the pandemic, I guess it goes into the more conspiracy side of things. Do you think this is more of a social experiment to see how far the masses could be controlled?
You mean that the pandemic was intentional and it was all staged, and somehow all the leaders of the world collaborated together, particularly with China, to launch this great grand experiment to basically modify human behavior?
Yeah.
Nah. This is like, everybody showing up at the same bar at the same time and having a great time and go, wow, we couldn't have planned this better. I really think humans are not that. They can't work together that way. I mean, look at the European Union. Not just kidding, but there's all kinds of examples where trying to get people to collectively perform an experiment like COVID, which is very complicated, and this started probably with a really bad accident in a lab that was probably funded by the United States and managed by the Chinese central government. And yes, your government lied to you. But the rest of it, how it all spread around, I mean, it simulates what can happen with bird flu, where through a natural mutation, something very deadly and bad will come out of the miasma and will threaten us in such a way it'll make COVID, look like a bad cold. I think that COVID was a really important dry run, and it was probably man-made. Unfortunately, the real conspiracy is how do you let your government keep lying to you like that? Mm-hmm. And then our patron saint, Dr. Fauci, right, who apparently was a great man. How does he go to his grave without telling that truth? Yeah. I don't know, because that story hasn't yet been completely written. It'll make an interesting Netflix series, though, one day.
Yeah, it's probably coming out.
But it hasn't come out yet, has it?
I know there's a documentary on him, but I don't know if it was in that angle.
See, I mean, that's the thing, is that you have to really flesh it out because it just happened, but so much of it seems like it had to evolve over a long period of time because Fauci wouldn't have been involved in these proof of concept experiments and sending toxic basically sending the virus across the world to a center that they knew was going to potentially create a weapon, a biologic weapon.
Yeah, so I think that puts, if that is true, that puts U.S. in a big, blame situation, right? Because if it came out of a lab, you can't say, who do you blame for all the loss of revenue, all the death, right? Is it the U.S.? Is it China? Like, how does that pan out? Or we just forget about it and move on?
I think, unfortunately, there have been many times when that actually has had to happen after World War I, World War II. There were attempts to get some sort of reparations and make everybody whole again. But really, you see the worst, you see the best in human nature at the beginning where it looks like it's an existential threat. The government then tries to take care of the weakest among us, and citizens try to band together and take care of each other, right? There wasn't anarchy. There wasn't mob rule. There weren't rampaging, tribes, terrorizing, selfishly. There was a lot of obedience. There was a lot of belief that the state had your best interests. And then there was PUA, which where the heck did that come from? Mm-hmm. Guess who released PUA? Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump, the guy everybody thinks is, crazy and that he may be selfish and stuffing his pockets, he blew trillions of dollars helping people he never met and many of whom probably would never vote for him, including illegal aliens who happened to be in the United States at the time. I'm not saying that he's a great guy. I'm just saying that's what happened. As I observed it, the first actions that the Trump administration made at the beginning of the pandemic mimicked a lot of the same things that Germany did, that Taiwan did, Singapore did. We just didn't do it as smart as some of those places, I think. Yeah. I think Taiwan and particularly Singapore had much more intentionality about what they were doing. The U.S. just had trillions of dollars, and it worked because it turned out the virus wasn't quite as lethal or contagious. It could have been, and that's the thing is, if we don't learn that lesson, then the bird flu is going to kill us, which we probably need because apparently we have too many people living on this planet. I just want the good people to survive, but that's the part of me that needs this kind of talk therapy to work through. I mean, we should let the bad people survive too, right? Yeah. So I hope if the bird flu comes, we do a better job than we did during the pandemic. But it felt like we did a pretty good job with the pandemic. Yeah. Just the origin story of it is very concerning.
But yeah, I feel like sometimes it's not as taboo to talk about this pandemic, but if I feel like Guam itself hasn't learned much from this experience.
Are you kidding?
Like,
Yeah, there's the
do
thing.
we have a
The hospital
disaster?
that you were born in, that your daughter was born in,
Right.
is worse than it was before COVID. It's worse.
I mean, I'm not just talking about the infrastructure. I'm talking about
The system.
Disaster relief. Have we set up new
No,
protocols?
their elevator doesn't work. The people that were there were stealing money. Remember that they stole like $2.7 million in overtime. They're going to jail. The people at Homeland Security, we didn't forget about you just because Josh is in trouble now. There were like at least 8 people, including the director, Mr. Esteves, who were accused of embezzling millions of dollars of overtime. These were federal funds. They're going to jail.
Yeah.
This is just the corruption that has been exposed after the pandemic is heartbreaking because we really trusted these people to do a good job, and they just couldn't keep their pants on, right? They couldn't keep their hands out of the cookie jar. They did all the same stupid stuff that the people in Puerto Rico did after their disaster, where their politicians were so corrupt that Donald Trump has not yet forgiven them. People give Donald Trump a hard time and his administration for not trusting the government of Puerto Rico. There's a really great reason why. Those people were idiots.
Yeah. So I really worry about the system now, like especially in the situation right now, right? I mean, there's always threats of another war that could reach our shores, right?
I'm sorry, so there is a war.
Well,
The Iran or Israel thing is just in a that's just a truce, which again was made up, right? You could tell Donald Trump was making that up as he went along. So, okay, we're in a truce now, okay? Yeah. And they're going, what? Truce? We never talk about a truce or a ceasefire. That was all bluster. That was all like, he literally lived fake it till you make it. And so now Israel and Iran are like, pointing at each other. But that's World War III. That's World War III. There's no way. Once the guns start going again, and they will, unless we have some sort of pressure valve figured out, you got Donald Trump holding off the slaughter of World War III. There's just no other way around it. I mean, when you bomb another country's nuclear production capabilities, and you humiliate them that way, and then you have a July 4th celebration this week, I don't think Iran's going to miss the chance to make a statement. Even if it results in them being obliterated, they may decide that if we're going to go out, we're going to go out with, July 4th fireworks.
Yeah. And whatever.
Which, by the way, it's July 4th in like 3 days.
And then whatever disaster we face, and there's going to be something at some point, right? And like
you're taking this very well.
Yeah, I mean, like we're 5 ICU beds from being full. If I'm number 6 on the list, I'm screwed, right? Like,
well, there's always the hallway. That must make you feel better.
Yeah, you put a ventilator in the hallway. Sure.
They did, and it's the thing is that when you say that did the government get any better since the pandemic? No, they devolved into the worst that they've ever been. This is the worst it's ever been, only given the fact that we had the potential to do so much good because we have a $1.2 billion government fund to make things better. $1.2 billion. Before the pandemic, it was like $870 million. So it's exponentially increased because you're not even talking about the federal funds that they're wasting. They've had to give money back. So this government is being held to the highest standard because they're really living it up right now. They're drowning in money. And they've got a Republican president that still hasn't decided whether or not to unlove us, right? But I think they just gave them another chance at spending the relief funds that they couldn't spend after 5 years. DOE, the U.S. DOE, which is not supposed to exist anymore, gave them permission to keep spending the $300 million that they blew. This is a very dynamic, very important, very lucrative or luxurious. There's just so much money flowing through our government right now. It's obscene that we can't get things done and that people would be so piddly ass to steal, $50,000, $1 million and think it doesn't matter. it's heartbreaking because that's what people in the States do. I mean, that's what people in Louisiana did, California did. It's already been done. New York used to have this kind of corruption, probably still does. But, the people of Guam didn't invent corruption. They're just really bad at it because they keep getting caught, You're only a good crook if you don't get caught.
Yeah. I want to move on to, let's move on to local healthcare policy.
Sure. That was local healthcare policy, but okay, go.
But including referring to bills. So we had recently Bill 118-38, known as the Guam Medicaid Access Enhancement Act, that would offer discounts on BPTs, business privilege taxes, to healthcare providers to service Medicaid patients. So do you think this is a good bill to incentivize clinics? Is there a better solution to make sure that Medicaid patients have access, or is there just too many Medicaid patients? Like, what are your thoughts on this?
There's about 57,000 Medicaid patients, so men, women, and children.
I read 30 to 40. Now it's 57,000?
No, it's 57,000.
Wow, okay.
And there is a potential additional, I'm going to just, because the treaty, the latest treaty between the Federated States of Micronesia and the United States gave the citizens of Micronesia Medicaid. So that's their new benefit. So when they come to the United States, come to Guam, they have Medicaid. They don't have to apply for it. They don't have to prove anything. They have Medicaid. And so they can use their...
Regardless of their salary or...
Yes.
Okay.
The president of the FSM is entitled to Medicaid. There's no screening process. The one question is, where's the money? Because it absolutely starts in Washington, but at least in Guam, as my understanding is, the drawdown is out of the Bank of Guam, or a local bank. So the question is, where's the drawdown for Medicaid for Micronesia? The Bank of Micronesia? The Bank of Micronesia, I think, is the Bank of Guam. I mean, Bank of Guam has satellites everywhere. So wherever it's coming from, it just needs to be able to be deposited into our hospital and into our healthcare system so that we can buy the medicine, so that we can provide the services. But that apparently has not been happening. And apparently when they signed the treaty, they forgot to put in the rules. And so people are still yet apparently scrambling to make the rules. It may be as of this broadcast that the rules have already been released. But as far as I know, the Federated States of Micronesia migrants are not being given free access to Medicaid, and they're having to apply to use our Medicaid, which slows tremendously the process down, because our Medicaid program at Public Health is crazily mismanaged. And the guy who was doing his best to make it better was Chris Carrillo, and he just died. And apparently they had no succession planning. Somebody new is now in there, and she's not revealed herself, and I think she might be having a nervous breakdown. But if she's listening, I challenge her to do what Chris Carrillo said he was going to do last March. He said last year that in March of 2025, we were supposed to have this island-wide Congress to explain how Medicaid would go moving forward and how it would benefit everybody. Chris Carrillo was going to sell Medicaid to the doctors, the dentists, everybody, and show them how it was going to work, because Medicaid used to be a non-factor. It was broke. It was everything bad that a public program could be, because it really didn't have that much money, according to Public Health. Really what they said is, we can't pay all our people and give benefits at the same time, so we're just going to pay people. The corruption within the government of Guam is killing our people. But, the solution in America is usually just give them more. And so they gave us, guess what? $157 million. The last 3 years, we've had $157 million to blow on Medicaid when we used to have maybe 11. Prior to COVID in 2018, we were lucky if we had $11 million worth of Medicaid money. And then we had maybe $20 million, which was what we call MIP, which was local funding, right? I mean, it was a mixture of local and federal, but either way, there was never more than $30 million in this Medicaid MIP program prior to COVID. And then again, with the stroke of a pen, Donald Trump, as president before he got kicked out, lifted the cap. I don't know how the heck we got up to the $157 million, but we're at a point where Medicaid is not only the most well-funded and biggest insurance company on Guam, but also in Micronesia. But there's also very little chance that we'll ever spend all the money. We'll never tap out the cap just because it's so slow to process things through public health. It's not because the services are not needed. It's just simply you can't legitimately spend the money because the mechanism is gummed up. It's not efficient. And so, yeah, in some ways, this is how insurance companies work. They always try to slow the reimbursement process down. And so public health has successfully done that just by being them, just by being their wonderful, lazy, corrupt, jackass selves. This is where the nepotism bites you in the ass. We have unlimited federal monies to make our healthcare system better, yet our corrupt public health officials keep putting people with the last name Camacho or Leon Guerrero that don't know up from down, and their OJT, which is on-the-job training, to help people get access to off-island care, to expensive medications, to cancer drugs. This is not a laughing matter. This is the same thing. This is the same corruption, Josh Tenorio, as what's making your family now go to federal jail. It's selfishness. You're not concerned about the end result. You're concerned about your comfort. You're concerned about padding your whatever you think you're padding. This is bad government, and that's worth getting passionate about. It's worth using bad words for. So I forgot what your question was, but I'm going to tell you that this law is a sham. It's a weak attempt to try to incentivize doctors to come and participate in Medicaid, when the real problem is the enrollment process and the reimbursement process within the government of Guam is not even close to being digitalized to mimic anything like what Medicare does. Medicare's reimbursements to us are very quick.
Yeah. So I'm hearing one of the solutions, and as a business owner, like getting 5% BPT per patient, I don't think is that big of a spread.
I think just getting paid
on time,
on time, and none of this crap.
Right. So automating getting reimbursements faster.
Yeah, there's another model where they give you the money up front and then you spend it, and then there's a lot of reimbursement models that are being discussed about Medicaid and how it goes. Mm-hmm. But let's not make it complicated. The government needs to put people in place who are bona fide, that they're going to do the thing, and that's financial management at a very basic level. So if they can't handle it, then privatize it, and then they need to quit lying to themselves. You can digitize this. You can turn it into computers. You just can't have jackasses in charge. If they keep giving you excuses for 7 years why they can't get this done, fire their ass. Let's quit worrying about why they can't do it, and let's get it done. And again, that's called privatization. If they really wanted it to get done, they do like the way that they do to buy vehicles at GVB. Do you ever notice how many new cars GVB has sitting in front of their office? They all say GVB on it. Or how about the Guam Memorial Hospital? Or how about mental health? How about the airport? They all have auto spot cars. So how hard is it to procure anything around here? There's at least 100 auto spot cars sitting in front of GovGuam agencies around the island, including the Port Authority. It's disgusting for the governor of Guam, Luan Nguyen, to say that she can't solve this problem. She has a master's of public health. For her to not be able to solve this problem of us being able to enroll and utilize the $157 million to Medicaid, she should return her diploma. She flunked. This is the most important utilization of that degree, of that kind of study. Everything else doesn't matter. And for you, Luan Nguyen and Josh Tenorio, to sit there in ad loop and say that you're doing your best ain't good enough. You should leave, because there's real work to be done. We don't need your excuses. And the island will not be healthy with all this bullcrap legislation that has no meaning under the sun, when the whole problem is you. The problem is our government. And we have to be really, really honest about this. It's not that the doctors don't want to take care of poor people because they stink, or they're not getting paid enough. It's the frustration in dealing with an inefficient government that can't tell up from down, and then gives you cockamamie excuses that just infuriate you as to why you're not getting paid. You have to call them rather than them calling us to, hey, are we cool? Are we, you're doing good? They're more like, I'll get back to you on Monday after I go to my dentist. So government employees, listen to this broadcast, and I hope every one of you, likes and subscribes, because this is a great show. You're the problem. Look yourself in the mirror, do a better job, or quit. Come and work in the private sector. We'll kick your ass.
Well, all right. So I want to go on to the next. I don't know if I can add any more comments to that.
No, you got to make this warm and fuzzy. We're supposed to talk about family.
Yeah, I wanted to go into the next hot topic that's been in the news this week, right? About Bill 82-38, the Do No Harm Anti-Medical Misconduct Act. And, it's probably been a while since the legislator had protesters standing in front of their office, but I kind of want to get a commentary on that. But
what do you think? Because you're a young doctor. You're still only been here for 10 years. So, you're still building your practice, right. and you heard the venom. Yeah. Because I didn't actually. I was peripherally involved in the last go round. You were intimately involved because this is a rerun. This is like a reboot, right? This is like a Spider-Man thing, right? Where they just get a new guy in the suit.
Yeah.
But so you were there. Right. That was I think maybe 4 months after the pandemic threat was lifted. Therese Terlahi releases from committee a bill almost exactly the same as this one, where they get rid of the mandatory arbitration, and they basically say that the doctors on Guam are sissies and greedy and incompetent. That's what I'm hearing from the senators, and they're being nice. Yeah. Then the patients come, and you were there, right? The patients were brutal. I'm talking about 3 years ago when they last went over this thing. Mm-hmm. How did you feel? Because I was watching it on TV, and I was totally surprised.
Yeah. I think it was a different mood in terms of when the patient's testimonies came out to this time. This time was a little bit more heartfelt. I definitely felt bad, in the situations they faced. And I kind of see that side too, because, and it ties to my origin story too, because, back when I was 10 years old, I had an appendectomy at GMH. And, got the surgery, pretty big scar. But the worst part of it is about 10 days later, my dad said, "Can I take a look at your scar?" And I had almost pus coming out, draining out there. So, and, we tried to get in to see the surgeon to reevaluate that and see if there's anything that needed to be done. But the surgeon was nowhere to be found. So, we don't know the story, what happened, but the narrative we had in the family was, and maybe there's some circumstances he wasn't there for some reason, but the narrative was my surgeon wasn't there to take care of the post-op complication. Because we know even back then that if you have an abdominal abscess post-surgery or even a wound, mortality rate might be 50 to 70%, right? So I had maybe a 50% chance of dying.
You wouldn't have been here, yeah.
Right, but the savior in this story was my primary care physician, Dr. Chu, on Ipa Road.
Yeah.
Evaluated me, sent me back. He's the one that diagnosed me with appendicitis, but he also diagnosed me with the post-op complications, sent me back to the hospital, and I got antibiotic treatment, recovered well.
So he took care of you.
Yeah, so he took care of me. So it was kind of a twofold thing where at the age of 10, I made my mind up, I don't want to be a doctor like the surgeon, but I want to be like the doctor, my primary care doctor, Dr. Chu. And at that point, I guess, according to my dad, I decided I want to be a physician at age 10. So that's kind of my origin. It's not necessarily a superhero story, but that's my origin story of how I became a doctor. And so I could see the both sides. There are complications. It may not be the surgeon's fault, and some things that I want for the patients to realize, especially in this field, is that we're going to have negative outcomes, especially in the hospital system, because those are the riskiest procedures or the riskiest times. But we often operate in the gray area. A lot of times I operate in the gray because we have algorithms, we have studies, but the human body is just so complicated that even if I gave you the same exact medication, the same exact treatment, everyone responds differently, and some people can have negative outcomes. Right. And some people can't really distinguish, is it the doctor's fault, or is it just chance, or is it, it's just nature, that's just how the dice rolls. Yep. Right? And it's just a gray area. And I guess the biggest threat is that with what I have a problem with this bill that's going forward is if it goes straight to a judge to decide, I don't think the people putting that bill in place really understand how complicated. Because even as a physician, when I am looking through case studies and evaluating other doctors' cases, it's hard. Yep. It's hard, and to make that ruling. And a lot of times it's not their fault, and it's a lot of negative outcomes, and it's not their fault. And a lot of times also they're named in the case just because they touched hands and had nothing to do with it, or they're in the same room. And they have a black mark on their database records, and that can haunt them for the rest of their life. And having that kind of record or going through that kind of malpractice suit could be as haunting as emotional toll taking as a divorce. Yep. It's that rough on a doctor, because you come in every day trying to save someone's life. You're not there to harm somebody. Yep. It's usually not intentional, right? So that's my concern with that. So I think there should always be, before the time where it can potentially go on your record, there has to be a medical evaluator on that panel to evaluate that before it goes to court. So that's my biggest concern. But I think one of the most positive things that came out was the suggestion was we all get in a room, maybe start from scratch or whatever if we have to edit it. I think on optics, it's better that we start from scratch and we work with the public, we work with all the stakeholders to start from scratch and feel like that we're building something together and we're listening to everybody. And I think the issue we've had is there was not enough communication between when you put the bill together. There's no feedback from anybody, maybe from the patients, I guess, that had negative outcomes, right? But I think there's not enough communication and feedback from the actual stakeholders, the big stakeholders, which are the physicians and the nurses that come in every day. And that was one of my big issues with it. But, going back to, I see both sides of the story. I wouldn't say I was a victim. I think I turned lemons into lemonade in that situation, but a lot of people have it worse, right? Like that mother that had a bedridden son for years and years and 8 years and didn't have a life, and that's a sad story, and that happens. And I don't know the case if that was the physician's, fault or not, but either way, that's a sad situation, and some people should be compensated for that.
The sadder thing is there's $157 million sitting in public health that could have gone to help that lady. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people that have given good money in the form of taxes to help folks who are at that dire need. And throughout our community, we have organizations like the Calvo Foundation, which helps people who have cancer. You have all these different folks who want to help out, mm-hmm. Yet the government is so inefficient at identifying where all these resources are because they're too busy stealing from us, right? So the thing is that the anger has to go back to those folks that we vote in. And so then the anger needs to go back to yourself, Mr. Lebowski. You've brought out this poison as a patient who's lost his son, and you've turned, instead of an opportunity to create lemonade, you're further poisoning it with your anger at attacking the doctors who actually show up to work. Because you know the thing that Dr. Chu manifested as his most important ability, it was availability. And by, working with trial lawyers who honestly, they don't care about you, man. They don't care about your son. They don't care about Guam. Trial lawyers are greedy whore bitches. They're just here to make a buck, and then they're going to go to Florida and lose it all on loose women. Just listen to me. This is our island. If you want to make it better, stick around and be productive. But attacking people who are available to help your community, and I'm really sorry you lost your son, right? But you didn't make the effort to even know who that doctor was. I mean, you come in blank because you don't take the time to get a primary care doctor or fix the hospital. You as a GovGuam employee, you're a social worker in Department of Education, you've heard the horror stories about GMH, yet you sit there and wait for somebody else to fix it. And you watch as your GovGuam horror fellow employees rake the system, and you laugh about it as you go and spend your retirement. I got nothing but derision as a taxpayer, right? We pay for service, and you give us crap, and then when things go sour for your family because you didn't care enough, you attack us. Well, guess what? Some of us can fight back. Some of us are motherfuckers. So you just stay in your lane, buddy. We'll grieve with you for your dead child, but guess what? There's a lot of dead kids out there. A lot of them are browner than your son.
And the other...
What?
The other, good point I think Dr. Nguyen made was, about GMH or that kind of protection. And it's kind of I don't necessarily want to throw any GMH under the bus or any, talk negatively.
They deserve it. They don't deserve any of your love.
Because, in effect, they've saved my parents, right? And
I heard that story.
Right. And
that was a pretty... Well, okay, I don't know your mom's story, but your dad's story was...
They saved both my parents. And I think at the nurse level and the people putting hands on my parents, they're great. And I think you have to have heart to work there looking at the dilapidated
thing. We keep doing that, right? And Lillian Posadas does that all the time. Oh, they're all got heart. Well, then why don't you clean the bathroom? Why don't you fix the leaky roof? Why don't you give them the pay same as the national standard? Right. I appreciate you, and this is your show and your house, and you're grateful that they saved your parents, but that's not good enough. We shouldn't be surprised. Yeah. I mean, the least they can do is save your parents. Your parents have been part of this community. They've been educators. They've been taxpayers. They're great people. They raised you and your family. So I don't give Lillian Posadas and the GMH administration one iota of thanks for putting us through this hell while you watch Josh Tenorio and his friends steal money from us, while Homeland Security steals money from us. And then you say you don't have enough money to pay the power bill. You don't have enough money to buy the medicines. It's an embarrassment to me as a son of Guam to have to apologize for all the crap that GMH does. And then kind people say, well, at least the folks who laid hand on me were nice and they were great. And the best ability is availability. It's not good enough. Hospital needs to be nationally accredited. It needs to be clean. It needs to have medicines. It needs to do things the right way. That's all we ask. And not what we're getting is not good enough. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, but with that, I think Dr. Nguyen makes a good point, and I think, I don't know if it's whose role is it, GBME, but it'd be interesting to see the statistics, right? What percentage of the cases are coming out of GMH versus GRMC versus the outpatient clinics. My suspicion is probably higher, definitely in the hospital system, because usually complications and things happen, and more so in the hospital. But between the two hospitals, who has more cases? And I would bet to say it's probably more GMH because of sometimes the protection. But because of certain protections, it's just maybe people get lazier or just things fall through the cracks. But I would like to see those stats. And sometimes what I see is that that bill will definitely affect the private sector, but it doesn't really affect the the public side. So,
well, again, let's be specific. It doesn't affect GMH. It doesn't improve GMH. It doesn't hold the doctors at GMH accountable. It doesn't hold the administrator accountable. She didn't even show up at yesterday's meeting. I think she did it the last time, but she's in retirement mode now, so she don't give a fuck. The real brutal truth about it is we are getting crucified in the private sector for the sins of GMH and public health because they don't do their job. They don't help these poor people because this is supposedly about people who qualify for Medicaid, these so-called poor people who can't afford to litigate. I mean, if we're being truthful, Mr. Trial Lawyer, you are supposed to be caring for people who can't afford your lawyer fees, right? So you're going to stick your neck out because you want a case that's slam dunk. And yeah, you're going to cast your net wide and sue every single doctor, nurse, anybody who looks like they have insurance just so you can get a settlement. You cast your net wide, just hoping to squeeze money out of people. This is the thing, man. If lawyers were reputable, if they were trustworthy, if they weren't the scum of the earth, maybe we should be having a discussion. But Therese Terlai, who was a lawyer yesterday, threw everybody under the bus in the medical community because she said we were greedy, incompetent, liars. So did Will Parkinson. Tony Atta kept his mouth shut. So for all we know, Senator Tony Atta is one of those guys. We have a toxic bunch of thinkers in the Guam legislature right now who are coming against us. And so we can either lay down and take it up the ass, or we can fight. And yesterday we decided to fight. I mean, there was a pretty good group of people with martial arts skills yesterday in front of the legislature, and they had a peaceful demonstration. But don't mistake our kindness and niceness for weakness. You're coming at us claiming that we don't know what we're doing, that we don't care about the people, and that we shouldn't be here. I dare you, man. I dare you, because this is not a threat. I'm not telling you this because I like you. I'm telling you this because it will happen. We are going to re-educate the mindset of the legislature and those people in the trial lawyer community who think doctors are easy hits. They think we're lambs ready to slaughter. I think Jodie Foster did pretty good in her movie. I wonder how my movie's going to go. This is not Silence of the Lambs. Let's talk about family.
Yeah. Let's on a more positive note here.
Yeah.
One thing I really admire and look to is your family. I think I'm probably closest to Kai or know Kai the most, but I've obviously interacted and met all of your family. But when I see, and don't take it the wrong way, but I think Kai really represents in Nicholas and all your kids. I feel like are the best attributes of both you and Melissa, and like it's just they had that. Like when I see Kai, I see that balance of being athletic, smart, knows how to talk, right? And as for me, I'm trying to raise my kids to be well-rounded citizens and be successful and productive for the community. But like I would say you and Dr. Nguyen are probably one of the hardest working people I know. You've been probably working 6 days a week for the last 20 years when you opened up EMC. And, and I imagine you're not, obviously you're not always there at home because you're putting probably more hours to your patients, right? At least time-wise. But like, what is your advice, or is there principles in terms of raising great kids? Like, because you're proof that maybe you don't need 7 days a week, 100 hours. Is it more about the intention? What is it that you feel has contributed?
So again, I appreciate the compliment. I'm sure Dr. Nguyen does too, because we are absolutely not perfect people, and we never claim to be. And so for us to have kids that people like, and that are at the very least, we would hope that they are pleasant to be around and respectful. I think the key is for at least my kids. I don't know about Dr. Nguyen, but my kids know that none of it is theirs. The clinic is something we built for the community. The house they're in is, something that we share with the bank. Our car payments are paid on time, but we're not gonna lie to anybody. I mean, we are living a life of great privilege because we're where we need to be, and we owe a lot of people for that, particularly our patients. And so we're available to them in ways that maybe some would say is not a good balance between life and work. But I would say my life running a family clinic on Guam is as big a blessing as I could ever hope. And my kids were raised in there, and again, maybe that wasn't maybe the best thing for them, but I'll tell them that that's what you signed up for because we born you, and we've made many mistakes, but I think again going back to the best ability is availability. Any parent out there knows and should know that if you do everything that you can with love and with your presence, a lot of times that's really all that your child could hope for, because it's when you're not there that they're the most lonely and when they're the most lost. And unfortunately, it happens way too often, and we see it. So my heart hurts for people that have grown up in environments where they missed a parent or missed somebody important in their life. It could be their grandparent, it could be their auntie, or a brother. So the loss of somebody meaningful to you is real. I mean, I lost my dad when I was only 14. So I knew, and I was actually more hurt for my brother and my sister because I knew my dad pretty well, and he prepared us for the death and stuff. And I've never felt like I was going to leave my kids, even when I was pretty sick a couple of years ago. I had atrial fibrillation, but I never thought I was going to die. So maybe I got to start thinking about the end game. But I'll be honest, I've done everything I've kind of wanted to do. So everything's gravy, and watching our kids grow up is fun. But I'm going to probably have to reinvent myself. And Dr. Nguyen and I have a really good exit plan where we're on some live aboard boat going around Micronesia doing ambulatory medicine in the island. So and with a helicopter. So we have ambitions, and not that we're always going to be together. It's just that we were never of the mindset that this was the end. This is not the final destination. In fact, it's a great privilege to be where we are, but we're not done yet. And so for my family, I think it's been a journey that we take together, and it's really great that we get them to be with us. But yeah, if they're athletic, I would say they're also hardworking. So that's my greatest compliment I can give to my kids is they know how to sweat, they know how to work hard because we make them do that. We do it together. All of them have worked on a farm. We call it a farm. They helped guys in the community who are growing vegetables and doing stuff. And I always thought that if you can do that kind of stuff and do it with a good attitude, then you can work with other people, because a lot of settings it is gritty work, hard work that people judge you by. And if you're a whiner, if you can't handle it, if you complain too much, like if you're in Minnesota and you complain about the snow, people kind of judge you, and probably rightfully, that you might not be trustworthy. You might not be somebody that we can trust in the end game if you're going to be too busy whining about your comfort. And so most of my kids are comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I don't know if that's the parental lesson that we're going to send out today. I'm just going to simply say, if it looks like it'd be hard to live with me, you're right. And my kids live with me every day.
Well, we might have to do this again, but or maybe
or you might get canceled.
Yeah, maybe
it's up to her.
I might get canceled, but I don't know. We might have to edit a few things.
Do you really?
No, I'm just kidding.
This is cable television.
This is cable television. But I believe in free speech, and
all those words were German, by the way. Yeah. They come from the common guttural language of.
Yeah, I think the hardest part would be
the Anglo-Saxons.
Joaquin and Mariana are close friends. I consider them family, and sometimes, how do you?
I didn't say anything bad about him.
No, but yeah, the administration. Yeah. But those are your opinions, and we have every right to say what we believe in.
Again, when you're in politics, you really can't be taking things personally, because as a person, I think Josh Tenora and Lulu Yongaro, must be wonderful people. And for them to give of their lives in an exposed way where they can take a hit like that, I'm just talking about work. I'm talking about outcomes. And I'm also talking about lame ass excuses. So we're not going to forgive your attempts to bury your dead with lame ass excuses. But as people, you know, we love you.
All right. We'll end it with that. Thank you, Dr. Akimoto.